There's a lot of reporting out there today regarding the sales increases that are happening in the comic book industry the first quarter of 2025. And they are, quite frankly, misleading. And I don't think like the writer from Popverse was trying to mislead people. I think this is what happens when you give dumb people information. They don't exactly know exactly what that information means. So I'm going to clear that up. I'm not here to poo-poo on anything. I'm actually quite excited. These numbers are actually falling in line with some of the stuff I've been reporting as of late, that there is increased interest. It looks like there's more enthusiasm, and people are returning to their comic book shops, not in the droves that I would like, and certainly not at that 20% number that Popverse themselves are reporting, but it's getting better, which I think is amazing because I want to see the comic book industry as strong today as it's ever been. But we're not quite there yet. So I'm not going to poo-poo on everything. I'm going to point out the really good news, the great information that we do have, but I'm also going to have to point out the reality of what was actually reported here, which isn't quite as strong. In fact, we don't even know exactly what it means because we don't know the baseline numbers themselves. Prana Direct Market Solutions is reporting a wave of positive data for the comic book industry, starting with a 20% increase in average sell-through since January 2023. On top of that, they claim pre-orders and subscription numbers are up 38% year over year. According to Prana's fan confidence rating, overall enthusiasm for comics is rising and retailers are seeing increased interest in single issues specifically, something that's been in decline for years. That data suggests both Marvel and DC are benefiting, with Marvel still leading in volume, but DC over-indexing compared to recent historical performance. Meanwhile, Image is reportedly under-indexing, implying they're lagging behind expectations. So let's talk about the good. Single-issue comic books are driving sales growth. Now, that does come with a couple of caveats. They say increased interest in single issues. That is in quotes from whoever is presenting the data from Prana. But unfortunately, the real sales growth part of that was in the article is not actually quoted. But I'm going to assume that the increased interest in single issues is driving actual sales growth, although it wasn't quoted directly from the presenter themselves. So that's great. Single issue comic books are the best storytelling medium in the entire world, and it looks like there's actual increased interest in those, and that's amazing. The bigger number, at least to me, the quantifiable thing here is the pre-order and sub numbers are up almost 40%. That means there's more good series out there that comic book readers, regulars, are going in there and identifying as being very good. A lot of times, at least in my conversations with comic book retailers, they base almost all of their sales on their subscription numbers, their pull box numbers. And if those numbers are going up, that indicates to the retailer that interest is going up and they're going to order more copies that people can actually buy. And it sounds like that is actually increasing. And then the other good piece of news out of this is that while Marvel is still leading as far as volume, DC is over-indexing what they've done, I'm assuming, in the past couple of years, and are starting to close the gap with Marvel Comics, which is what should be happening because DC, quite frankly, are wiping the floor with Marvel Comics when it comes to quality across the board. Marvel has a couple of 3 ongoing series that I even think are worth reading regularly these days. DC has maybe a dozen. They have a lot better stuff going on right now. And certainly the Absolute Universe seems to be leading the way. So that is all great news. DC is doing better, and they should be because they have better quality. People are throwing more books on their pull list, which is great because that indicates to the retailers that there are more popular series out there right now. And then the final piece of data from Prana is that single issues are driving the increased interest and enthusiasm in comic books in retailers. That's good stuff. Now, here's the bad news. The sell-through rate is not the sales rate. Saying that there was a 20% sales increase based on a 20% sell-through rate increase is categorically false unless the sell-through rate to begin with was 100%, because it's a 0.2 factor on whatever your original sell-through rate was. If your original sell-through rate is 80%, which would be amazing, you would index it by 0.2 and you would have a 16% actual sales increase in the market. If it was 50%, you index it by 0.2 and it's actually a 10% sales increase with that 20% sell-through rate increase. Now, me personally, just based on what I've done in my past, looking at numbers and the way that I've reported stuff, I would imagine that original number was actually under 50%. Because if there were, in fact, double-digit increases across the board as far as sales, I think they would just say there's a 10% sales increase. And this all comes from my experience when I would like write performance reports or write awards packages in the military. Sometimes my subordinates, if I was wanting to put them up for a package, they would do a lot of work and you would be able to quantify it as like a 3% increase in output or something like that. You don't want a number like 3% on your performance package or your award package. You want a bigger number. So then you would look for another way to quantify that increase to make the number bigger. So in this case, instead of saying the actual sales percentage increase, you use the sell-through increase number, which could just mean that comic book retailers are ordering less and being more discerning regarding what they're selling, and their orders actually could have gone down. But I don't believe that based on what was presented, but I don't have the starting numbers either. But Prana likely didn't want to say the sales rate increase was 8%, so they said there was a sell-through rate increase of 20% because it looks so much better. But I do believe if it was 10% or greater, they just would have used that number. And I don't, in fact, think Popverse were trying to be misleading with that headline. I think they were likely just too stupid to know that there's an enormous difference between sales increase and sell-through rate increase. And that all depends on what the original sell-through rate was. Putting that part out there, when asked what's fueling the momentum, Prana's Eric Freeman highlighted several recent initiatives that are resonating with readers. These include Image's Skybound Energon Universe, Transformers, G.I. Joe, DC's Absolute Universe led by Absolute Batman, and IDW's relaunch of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. One particularly interesting claim is that multiple retailers are seeing more teenage readers start pull lists specifically for DC's Absolute titles. Freeman suggests this mirrors the success Marvel had with the Ultimate Universe, giving new readers a version of iconic heroes that they can claim as theirs. If this trend holds true, it may signal the first real generational shift in comic readership in a decade. Lots of interest in the Absolute Universe, continued maintained interest in the Energon Universe. TMNT has been a good title since being relaunched at IDW. I imagine almost anything good going on at Marvel these days is almost all attributed to the Ultimate Universe. But we have seen sales, or at least indication that sales, because we never get the full numbers, that interest in the Ultimate Universe is waning over time, except for Ultimate Spider-Man. And I do believe, and history backs this up, that the Absolute Universe will have a similar trajectory in another 6 to 8 months. Absolute Batman will likely still be the best-selling comic book in the industry, but Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Flash will all start lagging behind greatly. Now, the one thing that could happen that would make the Absolute Universe almost irrelevant pretty quick is if Matt Fraction's Batman run is really, really good, and it wouldn't invalidate or make the Absolute Batman title like not necessary, but it certainly would supplant it because that's the actual Batman where stuff is happening that matters. It's in canon. And if that Batman run is really good and supplants Absolute Batman, you could see Absolute Batman sales also decrease over time, unless there really are just thousands of teenagers nationwide that are going into comic book shops for the first time in their lives, creating pull lists and only throwing Absolute Universe titles on there. But we'll definitely need to see more evidence of that. It's not like Prana has access to like all comic book shops, and it sounds like it was only a handful that actually gave them that type of feedback. The other thing, if you wanted to look at this as like a glass is half empty type of situation, Energon Universe still relatively fresh. Certainly the G.I. Joe book hasn't even gone to 6 issues yet. Absolute Universe, very, very fresh. I don't think we've gotten past 7 or 8 issues on any of those titles yet. TMNT, very, very fresh book. Haven't even made it to 5 issues on that. So all the stuff that's driving sales is relatively new. And we need titles with actual staying power. If they can have real staying power and be relevant in 18 months' time, that would be amazing. And that would really do some great things for the industry regarding sales. And that's what I hope is going to happen. Because there is some real quality with that Absolute line. That Absolute Batman book, while being ridiculous, is fun. The art is really good. That last issue of Absolute Wonder Woman was absolutely fantastic. G.I. Joe is really, really amazeballs. Transformers continues to be good, although there will be a writer change in the not-too-distant future. Daniel Warren Johnson will be off the title after 24 issues. And thus far, Juan Frey, at least in my opinion, is dragging Jason Aaron's corpse across the finish line with his amazing art on TMNT. But these are all like new initiatives. Eventually, these will not be new initiatives. Are they going to be able to come up with new ideas to replace them? Or will these have the staying power to really continue the momentum that's being reported by Prana Direct Market Solutions? Now, a lot of you are probably asking, what the hell is this? It's relatively new. I had to do a little bit of research, but I love doing that kind of thing, especially for you guys. Prana Direct Market Solutions is a relatively new player in comic retail analytics. Their mission is to empower publishers and retailers with actual insights, but their data model has limitations. Most notably, their sell-through tracking data is based on a POS, point of sale system installed in just 200 shops, a fraction of the total direct market. While they claim access to full sales data from 3 publishers, they don't name which ones based on industry context. It's highly unlikely these are Marvel, DC, or Image. Without a breakdown of how many titles, what publishers are involved, or actual unit numbers, it's hard to determine how representative these claims really are. So it's very similar to the issues that we have with the ICV2 sales rankings. They're based on a POS system that's very limited. I think theirs is about 125. This one's a little bit bigger, being used by 200 shops. That is a very small sample size. And they're directly reporting back to Prana, who certainly want to give people the impression that what they're doing is great and they should start using the POS and become part of the Prana family or whatever. So they are going to be reporting things in a very positive light. The fact that they have 3 publishers on the team providing sales data numbers, which I imagine is not only nationwide but worldwide to comic book shops, is cool, but it doesn't really matter if it's Oni Press or Black Mask or Zenescope. If it's none of the big publishers, the numbers really don't mean anything because those would only represent a fraction of sales or orders nationwide. They really wouldn't represent anything. And I imagine if it was DC and Marvel, there would have been a headline or some type of press release stating, hey, we're on board and we're providing these numbers because we want to provide great solutions to direct market, our retail partners and stuff like that. That information would be out there if it was Marvel, DC, or Image. But because it's none of them, it's not really all that important. So it's there, but take it with a grain of salt. But that's who Prana Direct Market Solutions is. Is this great news? Potentially it is great news. Is this a blip on the radar? It's potentially a blip on the radar, but it is good news. And that's the awesome thing, because we are seeing trends that I've been reporting on in the last month that show things are getting better when it comes to periodic comic book sales, single issue comic book sales, floppies as you and I would call them because we're comic book nerds. And that's great news. But sales have not increased 20%, and I don't believe they come anywhere close to increasing 20%, or they just would have provided the actual sales increase numbers. Sell-through rate has increased, which indicates retailers are being better about their orders, or people are coming in and buying more stuff off the shelf. I think it's the second one, but we don't even know that because they don't provide us the baseline numbers themselves. So those are my takes on that one. A lot of misleading information out there. I don't think they were trying to lie, but they accidentally did lie. But these things do happen. If you appreciate this kind of insight, analytical talk when it comes to comic book sales, very few places are going to provide this kind of insight. And if you would like to help us keep the lights on, the videos moving forward, and become a part of the Think Critical family, the best place to do that is Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. There's a button right here. We cannot do it without you guys and your support. I hope to see you there very, very soon.